It's timeless.
This is Saurabh, and you're listening to my favorite talk show, The Weekly Show with Aditya.
It's a universal truth that human beings can be easily scared, and the events of the past 16 months is an example. Now, the virus wasn't enough, the heat wave wasn't enough to scare people. Now we have another gimmick coming up: extreme weather events. Cities drowning, 1.5 degrees Celsius of global warming and climate change. The biggest charade of the 20th and the 21st century. The Indian Ocean is warming at a higher rate than other oceans, said a gimmick body called IPCC. India will witness increased heat waves and flooding, which will be the irreversible effects of climate change. Okay, understood. But where was this warning a decade ago, 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, 100 years ago, and more than that? Climate change is something I have been studying in school since I was in nursery. I have known about it. It's been there in our environmental studies courses and books, and teachers have reiterated this, but it was ignored. And until such bodies which have nothing to do to gain some kind of media coverage and relative importance, because they are not, they come up with such choreographed gimmick to distract humans. And how are we distracted? in yesterday's news coverage you had them discussing this, but it was just that, a discussion, a meaningless half an hour discussion. What makes me even more what makes this even more amusing is that after a while we'll forget it, and everything is to be blamed on lifestyle changes, the way we live, what we eat, as we were eating nice things and everything was perfect 20 years ago. No, it wasn't. There could have been extreme weather events, flooding versus drought versus 45 plus degree temperatures, or in other countries, flooding and fire events, but we ignored that. Why? Because this IPCC didn't come up with anything. So, unless there's an external agency which comes up with such fear factors, human beings ignore it. And because these external agencies want to keep themselves in the limelight, in the spotlight, they come up with such things. So, while it is a matter of concern, my only thing is, where was this concern 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago? Because such events don't happen in 10, 12 years. It is a period of 100 years. Means when we use coal trains, that was a result. When there was mining going on, when coal as a fossil fuel was used and abused and rigorously used, we didn't bother because we didn't have alternative fuels, or we didn't bother to harness alternative fuels like hydroelectricity or solar energy. And now suddenly we are in this hurry to do that. It's all a gimmick, and I don't believe a word of it. So it's nothing more than a choreographed gimmick. And with this, I welcome you to episode 402 on the 11th of August 2021, and let's take a look at what is there in the menu this morning. Well, there's only one topic. We'll be discussing the SummerSlam pay-per-view event, part 1 of that. Let's start discussing. But before that, so for the SummerSlam pay-per-view event, there are a few interesting matches scheduled. Generation across generations, the matches have been scheduled, and the ones that have garnered all the attention are the ones between John Cena, who returned after 1 year and has been confirmed to take on Roman Reigns, though it was in a slightly controversial manner and it was done in a more childish approach. And then the one between Goldberg and Lashley for the WWE World Championship. Let's begin for the WWE Universal Championship. Now, Roman Reigns has been the Universal Championship for the past 1 year, ever since he returned after a brief break at last year's SummerSlam event, went on to defeat Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman in a triple threat match, took the Universal Championship, beat a couple of good wrestlers in Edge, Daniel Bryan, Kevin Owens, his own cousin Jey Uso. Once again, he defeated Edge, though there was a outside obstruction, but he beat Edge fair and square at WrestleMania. And there were a couple of other events where he beat Edge. Again, WrestleMania, it was a triple threat match, and then after that, a couple of events where he took on other wrestlers. But it's back to the SummerSlam event, the Summer WrestleMania event, and here we have John Cena taking on Roman Reigns for the WWE Universal Championship. The original scheduled match was between Roman Reigns and Finn Balor, but Cena came in, took the contract, signed his name, which was deemed official by the WWE general managers, and it was deemed official. Though Reigns has no interest to take on Cena, but this is official. Remember, these two have faced each other before, but that was a slightly more outspoken Reigns. Here we have Roman Reigns who doesn't speak much, just like Brock Lesnar. He lets Paul Heyman speak for him. So that's how this event is going to go. Who wins? Cena or Reigns? Across generation, yes. Is it the first time they are facing each other? No. Has there been a match of the century between them? Yes. In fact, Cena has also faced his cousin The Rock before, twice. So Cena versus Reigns, it's not happening for the first time, but because of a different attitude undertaken by Reigns, though it's not technically an attitude era, but a different attitude persona overtaken by Reigns, where he is laconic as far as his words are concerned. That's what attracted Cena to challenge him again, and therefore the promotions prior to this particular match are way different than what they were when they faced each other for the first time 5 years ago. So an interesting match, icon versus icon, legend versus legend. Some will cringe at Reigns' name being put in the list of legends, but the list of legends is fluid. You can add anyone you want. It's all about interpretation. And for me, Reigns in his 10-year reigns in this business has already reached there. So yes, Cena versus Reigns for the WWE Universal Championship, a very interesting and a mouth-watering event. Moving on, another mouth-watering event is Goldberg versus Lashley. Goldberg, who had challenged Drew McIntyre before this for the WWE World Championship last year around TLC. Well, he returns once again in the manner in which he returns, where Lashley had just beaten an opponent, and coincidentally for both Lashley and Drew McIntyre, the opponent they beat, which after which Goldberg's music came on, was Keith Lee, who has not been in title contention for a while, but we shall talk about that later on. So yes, Goldberg 54, how long will he keep on returning is something that is between the WWE management and the wrestler himself, but here he is, notwithstanding the vagaries of age and all the effect of over 30 years of this business taking a toll on you. He has returned. He's challenged Lashley for the WWE World Championship. So are Reigns and Lashley's respective title reigns in threat? Are Goldberg and Cena a threat to Reigns and Lashley? You could have said this 2 3 years ago, but now their attitude is such that they are unfazed by their
It's
opponents
10:15.
and they continue to do the job they do. And with MVP and Paul Heyman on the outside, with the Usos looking to obstruct the match, you would expect that Usos would want to obstruct the match depending on how it happens. So expect in the Cena Reigns match obstruction by the likes of Edge, Rollins, the Usos. So anything is possible. As far as Goldberg and Lashley are concerned, it's someone who is, let's say, on the wrong side of the age versus someone who is fit. So that will also come into effect. The stamina of the wrestlers will come into play for the WWE World Championship. Moving on, another interesting one is the WWE United States Championship. Sheamus, who had opportunities at the world title, was made the United States champion post WrestleMania, and he has battled quite a few young and upcoming wrestlers, those who are not in the popular domain, but someone who has garnered the interest of the management and the crowd is Damian Priest, someone who can match him strength for strength, move for move, and is equally a good grappler, same height and power for power versus Sheamus. So it will be very interesting as to how Damian Priest, looking for his first title in this particular brand after being successful at the NXT level, does it. So yes, Damian Priest versus Sheamus, a 50-50 opportunity, but as is the case in all these three title matches, the champion has the advantage. You have to win by pinfall or submission. If the champion is counted out, or they do something which disqualifies them, they still retain the championship. So in this case, Reigns, Lashley and Sheamus have the advantage because of the champion's advantage clause, and there is no rematch clause. So if something happens, if Sheamus, Lashley or Reigns do something which is deemed inappropriate, or there is a disqualification, they retain their respective title. And sometimes to retain your respective titles, you have to do that. And remember, there is still Big E, the Money in the Bank winner, the men's Money in the Bank winner, still lurking. Which particular title will he cash in? Looks like the Universal Championship is the one, but it can even be the World Championship, WWE World Championship title. So anything is possible. So yes, champion's advantage with Big E lurking around the corner as far as the Universal Championship and the World Championship are concerned. Moving on, there are two of the Women's Championship. Even these three wrestlers, Nikki Cross, Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley, have had a long history since WrestleMania, since Rhea Ripley defeated Asuka, who is slightly out of title contention, and Charlotte walks in, defeats Rhea Ripley, then Nikki Cross cashes in, and eventually it becomes a triple threat match. Now in a triple threat match, there is no champion's advantage. Whoever gains the first pinfall or submission wins. There are no disqualifications, so expect chairs, tables, announcers tables to be used to disable your opponent, which means to make sure that your opponent doesn't get up. So yes, expect such events to happen in a triple threat match. Moving on, the SmackDown Women's Championship, it's a WrestleMania rematch after Belair defeated Banks. Before that, Banks defeated Bayley to win the championship. And Belair also defeated a couple of other women to retain her championship. So Banks returns just before SummerSlam after taking a 3 to 4 month hiatus, and once again it's a WrestleMania rematch, a mouth watering match and let's see how these two wrestlers respond and whether they commit mistakes they did or they move on. Then there is, of course, the tag team championship. At this point, it's the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. The Mysterios beat Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode to create history. The Usos, who were not on good terms with each other, decided to be on good terms to win a tag team championship match, knowing that the singles career will never take off as long as Reigns is the Universal Championship. And even if Reigns gives an opportunity to both of them again, they are most likely to lose as it has happened before. So they are content on being using their skills in a tag team championship match. Now, Usos defeated Mysterios to win the tag team championship. So, another rematch on the cards and a very interesting rematch, and it's called Bloodline versus Bloodline, father and son versus the Uso twins. So, interesting match on the cards. And once again, champions advantage. And since the WWE Universal Championship match is expected to be the main event, let's presume that, and it could be a possibility that the SmackDown Tag Team Championship could take place at the kickoff show. That's another possibility. Expect the Usos to lay interference in the main event Universal Championship match. That's taken. Expect someone like Edge and Rollins to also interfere in that match. Talking about Edge and Rollins, once again a non-title match. Two individuals spanning across generations, a gap of 13 years. Someone who has been there in this business for 10 years, someone who returned after 10 years after taking a brief break due to injury in 2010. So, two individuals who have influenced through their moves and their attitudes the WWE Universe. Edge is slightly popular because of the time he made his debut in, that is 1999, in the pre-pseudo media era. Rollins came when pseudo media was beginning to gain a hold on sports event and how the pseudo media or pseudo media would take and influence people and the actions of wrestlers. So yes, it's the pre-pseudo media generation versus the pseudo media generation. It does affect people with new attitudes and whatever you may want to call it. So yes, an interesting non-title match on the cards, but expect them that their eye will be on the winner of the WWE Universal Championship match, and they will once again lay claim to go against the winner of Cena versus Reigns. So at this point, looking at how the previous matches have played out, it's not just about history, it's about logic. The interferences by Usos and Reigns, who can't disqualify himself, expect such events to happen. So while Edge and Rollins are facing each other because they feel that the other has robbed them of a title opportunity or winning the title, in Rollins' case, he has been sidelined as far as facing Reigns is concerned. Why is that? That's for the WWE management to clear it out. I don't know what to guess in this case. Edge feels that Rollins interfered in his WrestleMania match, in his Money in the Bank match, and cost him an opportunity. So yes, they have a past. One eye will be on that match, considering that the Reigns Cena match is expected to be the main event, and the Goldberg Lashley match is one which could be the first match of the regular show. So anything is possible. Another interesting match which is on the cards is Jinder Mahal versus McIntyre. Similar to Edge and Rollins, they feel that the other has robbed them of an opportunity to win championships. Jinder Mahal feels that he did not get an opportunity because the way McIntyre was holding on to the title and defeating opponents. McIntyre knows that, just like Edge knows that Rollins interfered in his match. McIntyre interfered in the Money in the Bank ladder match to rob him of winning it, and then maybe he could have cashed in. So, as Edge and Rollins will be keeping a keen eye on the Cena Reigns match, Jinder Mahal and McIntyre will be keeping a keen eye on the Goldberg Lashley match, because as long as Lashley is champion, McIntyre cannot challenge him. But if in a surprise move Goldberg manages to win, then both Jinder Mahal and McIntyre will be looking to stake their claims to another opportunity. And remember, we have a Money in the Bank winner lurking around. So these are the matches scheduled. As soon as the matches get over and the results come out, I will discuss it. But expect the unexpected, and yet expect the respective champions to retain their title, though it's difficult in the case of Nikki Cross, Charlotte Flair, and Rhea Ripley. But still expect that there is not going to be a huge surprise if either Cena, Goldberg, Damian Priest, Mysterio, Banks get their championship back, because for most of them it's another title in their kitty. So anything is possible as far as these matches are concerned. To expect a few similar events that happened before: interferences, disqualifications, distractions with respect to MVP and Paul Heyman. So whoever wins, not surprising if the respective champions retain. Once again, not surprising. Let's move on.
For more awesome content, tune into the next episode of the Weekly Show.
So this ends episode number 402 on the 11th of August 2021. I will be back on Friday the 13th of August at 10 a.m. IST.
It's 10:30.